of DRC. Hence, the threat on Goma was saved from the control of M23. This created, Mr. Speaker, an elusive window for the settlement of the security challenges following years of conflict. Two, Mr. Speaker, the ceasefire between M23 and the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was achieved because of the presence of KDF, and Mr. Speaker, let me say it, that the force commander of the East African Community Regional Force is a Kenyan. General Nyaga was there, Major General Nyaga, and today we have Major General Kiugu. This has really allowed the political track to take shape. It facilitated the commencement of the political track, which is spearheaded by the former President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, as a facilitator. M23, Mr. Speaker, has indicated conditional readiness for pre-cantonment, which is a critical step towards the disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration of those communities which have been affected by the security situation in Eastern DRC. Three, Mr. Speaker, through the East Africa Regional Force, which Kenya is part of it, the Bunagana, Bunagabo, Kibumba, Goma, and Kichanga, Sake, Goma, main supply routes are now active. Hence, the enabling movement of commerce, service, and people, and more importantly, facilitating the access of humanitarian supplies. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the deployment led to the gradual return of refugees and IDPs to areas which are now under the East Africa Regional Force control, resulting to the reduction in crime and violence against non-combatants, this being a critical mandate of the protection of civilians. Mr. Speaker, I was there last week. 3 days I spent in Eastern DRC in visiting our troops and talking to the leadership, my colleagues in DRC. You'll see there's a sense of stability and a protection of civilians from armed conflict. Mr. Speaker, the East African Regional Force has also continued to support the program, which was part of what the head of state agreed, for setting up the disarmament areas, for establishing the infrastructure for demobilization of all the armed groups, and for establishing community rehabilitation and stabilization programs. A key leader engagements within the joint operation area. So, Speaker, this is in support of the peaceful coexistence among communities while progressively facilitating the restoration of good governance and the reestablishment of social amenities such as schools and health sectors in those areas before the deployment of Kenyan Defense Forces serving under ICRAF. Speaker, ICRAF jointly with the MONUSCO, and MONUSCO is the United Nations mission in Congo, and the representative of the government of DRC have identified suitable, important pre-cantonment sites at Bunagabo, which has enabled the government of DRC to initiate the demobilization, the disarmament, and the community rehabilitation and stabilization. Finally, Mr. Speaker, the last achievement is the initial deployment of the Kenyan contingent as the first boots on the ground in the joint operation area, has secured and has set conditions for deployment of other contingents in the multi-sectoral theater or sector of North Kivu, meaning Kenya has demonstrated much needed leadership in a crisis situation. And what I mean is, it was KDF that first went to that theater for the first 4 months. It's after the success, the achievements that our colleagues from Burundi, South Sudan, and Uganda are now part of the wider multinational force in that area. Speaker, the second part of the question was, what is our exit strategy for KDF troops who are serving under the aircraft from DRC? Speaker, the East African Regional Force was first deployed for an initial mandate of 6 months that lapsed on 30th March 2023. And thereafter, under the leadership of the heads of state, it was extended to 8th of September 2023. In effort to chart the way forward, Mr. Speaker, a technical evaluation team comprising of experts from all our member states, the East African member states, was constituted in the last heads of state and government summit in Bujumbura, and their main role was to assess the aircraft mandate, assess its achievement, and assess its way forward within the mandate implementation, and render a report to the EAC Sectoral Council of Defense Ministers, which, Mr. Speaker, will take place between the 21st and 23rd of this month in Nairobi. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, based on that report, on the restoration of peace and security in Eastern DRC will be a desired condition in which will tell us the military success and the eventual exit from the mission. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, in my concluding remark, the conditions could culminate in Kenya's exit, an aircraft exit, because it is not Kenya which is exiting. It is all the multinational troops within aircraft, Kenya included, that will exit. So if the East African community heads of state and government fail to get renewal of the aircraft current mandate upon its expiry on 8th of September, if for any reason the government of Kenya decides to withdraw KDF, and one of the reasons can be even this House through a motion asking the executive and the National Security Council, with very good reasons, to withdraw from Eastern Congo and from the multinational force. In the event the government of Democratic Republic of Congo withdraws its consent and decides that aircraft should leave, and in the event the mission becomes untenable in terms of security. Those are the scenarios in which KDF can be withdrawn from their performance under the East Africa Regional Force. So, Mr. Speaker, our mandate is until 8th of September. At the Defense Headquarters, we always have a plan to make sure that in the event of the 4 scenarios, we will bring back our troops safe and sound. And Mr. Speaker, finally, it is not only, KDF troops are not only serving under aircraft. Within the DRC, Eastern Congo, under the UN mission, we have over 250 quick response team, our special forces serving under the UN. We have our communication and signal battalion serving under the UN mandate in Congo. Those are working within the confine of the US mandate. But for aircraft, our mandate ends on 8th of September. The Council of Ministers, which I am a member, will sit on 21st and 23rd to look at the technical team evaluating the achievements and the way forward. And then the heads of states will meet 1 week later. If they give the extension, well and good, we'll be in DRC because we have done a lot. If the extension is not granted, I want to assure this House and the country that our troops will come back home safe and secure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Zengo, I think it's as clear as that. Do you want supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the CS for the information that he has given us. This question came up because there were concerns that since when Kenyan troops went to DRC, the relationship between Kenyans and Congolese people started being wasted, and it is a concern whether this intervention, is it beneficial or not? Number two, Mr. Speaker, the CS has told us that all the IDPs are moved. I want him to confirm whether the IDPs have really agreed to go back to Goma, because the information that I have, which I cannot prove whether it's true or not, but since he has been there in the last 1 week, can he confirm to the House that indeed, because of Kenyan troops and the ICRAF, that group of East Africa, that really the IDPs have gone back? And thirdly, at what point did... this is important, Mr. Speaker, because there is a time when the Congolese president had to ask for reinforcement from SADC, the Southern African countries, to bring their troops. Did we fail? Did our troops fail? Or what necessitated the reinforcement from southern countries? Thank you.
I'll give one joyrider. One joyrider. Member for Migori.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. First, I would like to congratulate our Kenyan soldiers who are in DRC. They are trying their best. But I would like to ask the Honorable Minister that since our troops went to DRC, we have seen refugees coming from DRC and flocking into Kenya. I had an opportunity to go to Kitale Showground and met the refugees from DRC. The purpose of sending our troops was to help DRC get peace in their own country. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Because even in the recent days, there was news that there were some places that the rebels attacked, women were raped, children were killed. Places like Rugari, Kitashanga, Mweso, Kiwanja, they were attacked. And the majority who were killed were women and children. Are you convinced that our soldiers are doing enough? Or if not, why don't you look for another way out to help DRC so that they get their peace and stop being refugees in other people's country? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, Ferdinand, you'll be the second joyrider, second and last.
Thank you very much, the CS for defense. And I think it's just common sense, much as there could be some complaint, but I want to agree with you that the Eastern DRC actually had problems. And I think we read widely, Mr. Speaker, the opening of the Eastern DRC has actually enabled us to get most of the export coming through Mombasa to DRC and across. So I want to take this opportunity and thank you, the Minister, for doing what you are doing. And I think what she's saying is true. I've also heard the same thing, but those could be just noises in the past. But as far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of benefit. And in fact, that has enabled DRC to join the East African community. And we actually, there's a way we're opening up the region. And therefore, I want to take this opportunity to thank the Minister for the work being done. Please keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That's not a question, it's a compliment. Owen Bayer, you'll be the last.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, allow me to ask this question to the Honorable Minister, who is a ranking member of this House. Who was, I think that rank does not go away, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask about the Banyamulenge in Eastern DRC, that they have been excluded from the talks that are being headed by the Kenyan delegation led by the former president. The Banyamulenge, as you know, are cross-cutting. They're both in Rwanda and in Congo. But in these talks, they're one of the oppressed organizations. community. And unfortunately, when our former president held the talks, they were removed from the table. And they are suffering. And their leader, Professor Lazare, is incarcerated and nobody knows where he is. And they have been asking Kenya to help them. Unfortunately, this information doesn't seem to reach the former president's desk because they have been blocked. Because it is said the former president is friends with the current president of Congo, and therefore he is more siding with the current Congo regime other than accommodating the other. I do not know whether President Uhuru is being an impartial arbiter in the DRC Congo, or he has taken sides and therefore blocking other people who are aggrieved from accessing the negotiation table. And one of the people is Lazare Rukunda. He's a professor. He runs a small university. He was arrested last 2 weeks, and he's been incarcerated. He's been held in Comunicando, and his family doesn't know where he is. I think, Honorable Minister, you have a responsibility to ensure that Kenya is a good arbiter in these discussions and that everybody in the Congo is protected. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, answer those short questions very quickly. We got the next question.
Speaker, I agree with the Honorable Member for Mwingi on the IDPs. Not all IDPs have gone back. It's a huge crisis. If you go to the road between Goma to Kibumba, you'll find IDPs. But gradually, now that there's peace and security and stability, you will find, particularly where the Kenyan troops are, people are going back to their homes. People are planting their farms. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, my good sister, the Member of Parliament for Migori, really asked me about the issues to do with women and all that. I think one of the mandates that ICRAF and most of the Kenya Defense Forces have done and achieved in Eastern DRC, and I saw it, that they are really taking care of the most vulnerable parts of the society, which is one of the things that we can credit our forces, protecting women, children, elderly. In fact, 2 days ago, Mr. Speaker, our own forces helped a lady deliver twins in an area called Kibumba. They are providing water. And even what the member from Mwingi, Mheshimiwa Mwingi North said, is that the clip of the video you see going around, those are old clips. If a committee of this House happen to visit, you'll see the Kenyan troops who have been there are very much welcome. And if you go to these cities, Kisangani, Beni, Goma, you'll find huge Kenyan businesses in the petroleum sector, in commodities. So, and that part of the world, again, is an area where Swahili is spoken. Honorable Baya, Mr. Speaker, I really want you to indulge me and maybe invoke the standing order. That is an internal political matter of DRC. And I don't want to discuss it because you are a long-ranking foreign minister. I don't want to be quoted that I am discussing personal, political, internal issues of the government. Our troops are in that theater. They are under the DRC government. I don't want to take and discuss politics. So you'll ask me, but Banyamulenge, they are known there as M23. So Speaker, I don't want to say anything on that. Maybe when he gets an opportunity and get the former president who is leading the political track, then they can have a chat. So I can't discuss, Mr. Speaker. You will forgive me. Of course, the one for Honorable Ferdinand, Mr. Speaker, was a comment. But Mr. Speaker, I want to say it off the cuff. Apart from restoring peace and security in DRC and in Somalia, in all our regional, our neighbors, Mr. Speaker, we have an economic interest. That part of DRC is where the port of Mombasa is a key player, where many Kenyans, Equity Bank, Mr. Speaker, is the largest bank in that country. KCB, Mr. Speaker, has bought the biggest local bank there. There are many Kenyans. So apart from making sure a stable, secure DRC, Mr. Speaker, is good for the economy of our country, is good for regional trade, is good for regional integration. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Rook, what is it? I want to close this and go to the next question.
Mr. Speaker, for any nation which has developed, most of them, about 80% of the developed nation, they have military as part of the economic plan. And it will be important if the minister can stipulate clearly what is the military's, how the government is integrating military into the economic plan so that we can be able to come out of poverty as a nation. It is important when the military is deployed in Congo, in Somalia, and many other countries around Africa, we need, as a nation, to be able to know clearly how does that fit within our economic plan. It is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, and this is something which has been avoided over the years by the Kenyan military. It is important for the Kenyan military to ensure it is playing a critical role in the economic development of this country, not only the security. And this is a matter of history for those who are students of international relations and diplomacy, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mchomba, what is it?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me first to congratulate the Minister, the Honorable Ranking Member of this House. I believe his ranking status is still active, for executing the questions of the day in a very well-informed manner. But, Mr. Speaker, I would want to ask the Honorable Bare Duale to tell us what are the deliverables of the forces when they go to such missions? And how do they measure deliverables in comparison with our expectations as a country, just like my colleague, Honorable Ruko, has asked? What are our gains when we send these troops to those countries? How do we benefit as Kenya? Other than just saying that we have regional peace, how do the individual troops members, our soldiers, benefit when they go to these missions? Honorable Speaker, I would also want to ask Honorable Duare, since November 22, what have we achieved as Kenya since we sent these troops to the regions? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Regional obligations do not necessarily carry economic benefits. It is a moral duty to your region. Yes, what is your point of order?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, you partly responded to my matter of concern. My worry is that there are matters of the nation we could be discussing in the context of our regional intervention, which may not be prudent. In fact, may call for in-camera proceedings if necessary. So I wanted to request your intervention, Honorable Speaker, that those matters we are raising, both by the Honorable Ruku and my good sister Muchomba, could be collateral. They are not matters to be discussed in the context that we are proceeding now. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
We'll go to question 230 of 2023. Honorable Duale, if you wish, you can write it to Honorable Ruku and tell him the economic benefits of the military. And Honorable Mchomba, our military don't go out to protect us for any personal gain. It's a patriotic duty. Honorable Lotte.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Noting that the military recruitment will be starting on the 28th of this month, and there's a lot of anxiety from the young people, I'll wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary the following questions. One, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measures that are put in place to curb serious malpractices like bribery and nepotism during the military recruitments, so as to accord poor but well-deserving Kenyans fair opportunities in the recruitments? Two, I'll wish to ask the Cabinet Secretary to explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure that the Kenyans from the marginalized regions, such as Kachaliba and others, and Turkana, yeah, and all those other regions are considered in the ever elusive military jobs. And the last one, I'll wish the Cabinet Secretary to explain mechanisms that the government has put in place to enable Kenyans to report on malpractices that are witnessed during the subsequent military recruitment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Minister. Just hold for a minute. Allow me to acknowledge the following schools in the gallery. Soliat Boys High School, Soin Sigoet, Kericho. FIM School, Kimilili, Bungoma. Mukinyai Primary School, Molo, Nakuru. Hekima Marigat School Primary, Baringo South, Baringo. And these are primary schools for Molo, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School, Rombay Primary School, Lawina Primary School, Arimi Primary School, all from Molo constituency, Nakuru County. Minister, indulge me to give the member for Molo 1 minute on behalf of all of us to acknowledge the presence of those schools.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It's indeed is a great privilege. We have 274 pupils from different primary schools in Molo constituency, starting with my own primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. Honorable Speaker, that's one of the most public school in Molo that was hardly known, that produced the Member of Parliament for Molo constituency and the chair for the Departmental Committee of Finance and National Planning. It is this school that produced the first ever MP to be re-elected since last 30 years, and therefore I'm very privileged to associate with this, my former primary school, Mwangi Muchuki Primary School. It's a great encouragement to the other schools, Mukinyai Primary School, Rombay Primary School, Lawina Primary School, and that's why, Honorable Speaker, every time I get a chance, I invite them to come to Nairobi to observe Parliament proceedings, to see Nairobi. Because, Honorable Speaker, in my vernacular, there is a proverb that says, he who does not travel thinks his mom is the only one who is able to cook. So it is their chance to come and see Nairobi and aspire to also be members of Parliament, to be governors, to be president, to be anything that they dream to be. Because if the son of a single mother from a humble background from Mukinyai who went to public primary school, public secondary school, public university can be where he is now, then not even the sky is the limit. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for your indulgence.
Well, Minister, congratulations for your journey in life. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, in answering this question, I really want to urge the country and the House that they should not charge us, they should not use the benchmark of the previous recruitment. It's the first recruitment under my leadership, and it's the first recruitment under this administration. Mr. Speaker, KDF recruitment process is guided by the Constitution of Kenya, specifically Article 10(1)(c) that protects and provides for national values and principles of governance, which will bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them makes or implements public policy decisions. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Defense is determined to protect Kenyans from fraudsters posing as KDF recruitment agents, bent on marrying on an open, free, fair recruitment process. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of every recruitment cycle, eligible applicants are provided with very clear guidelines on when and where they should present themselves and how they should apply to join Kenya Defense Forces. Indeed, the public is always advised during the recruitment drive to avoid giving bribes and other favors to impersonate in the pretext that they will be assisted in securing employment in the KDF. Mr. Speaker, the aforestated notwithstanding, There are isolated instances where KDF personnel have been involved in recruitment malpractices. And to serve as a deterrent, Mr. Speaker, all suspected cases have been thoroughly investigated. Those found culpable subjected to judicial process in the form of court-martial, often leading to dismissal from service or imprisonment. And Mr. Speaker, the answer which I have provided to this House, I think in about 5 to 6 copies, I have attached Annex A that provides into the status of the completed and ongoing cases of individual officers and more so general officers who were prosecuted since the last recruitment, which was in July of last year. Mr. Speaker, that annex will show you the rank of those officers. It will show you the crime they committed, and all these officers faced the court-martial precisely because of recruitment. Mr. Speaker, the second question was explain the affirmative action strategies that the government is putting in place to ensure Kenyans from marginalized communities and regions are considered elusive for military jobs. Mr. Speaker, if you allow me, I think the evolution was to solve marginalization. I am sure there are issues, but I think the term marginalized, Mr. Speaker, will be a thing of the past very soon. Mr. Speaker, KDF is conscious of the country's ethnic diversity and always promotes a national outlook among its ranks. And even you look at the hierarchy and the leadership of Kenya Defense Forces, Mr. Speaker, on the face of it, represents the face of Kenya in terms of diversity, tribe, religion, and the region they come from. This is predicted, Mr. Speaker, is predicated on the Defense Forces' primary role of defending and protecting the country on the basis of inclusion. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the distribution of slots, selection, and development of KDF human capital is inherently reflected on the face of Kenya on the account of equity as required in our Constitution. One of the guiding principles, Mr. Speaker, in KDF Act of 2012 that stipulates that recruitment must reflect the diversity of the Kenyan people in an allowable proportion that ensures that the composition of the command of KDF also embraces the principle of equity and inclusivity. And Mr. Speaker, since I took over as a Minister for Defense, one of the principles that I say people will remember for me as a Minister for Defense is to make sure that the rank and the leadership of Kenya Defense Forces reflects the diversity and the communities in our country. Therefore, equitable distribution of slots to counties, sub-counties, and divisions in some places always are computed at the planning phase of the recruitment cycle, and they are based on the following parameters. Number one, national population according to the latest national census. 2, population and demography in each county, sub-county, and in some cases, some divisions. 3, KDF human resource needs on the current manning levels among KDF officers, service members, and constables. 4, current number of officers, service members, and constables from each sub-county. So, Mr. Speaker, we look at holistically the numbers of our human resource in Kenya Defense Forces. And based on that, we will look at the numbers from each sub-county. And based on that, we will create slots for every county, for every sub-county in our country. So, Speaker, sometimes we look at the socio-political variables, rural versus urban, marginalized groups and indigenous groups. Speaker, finally, the recruiting officers are required to submit to the defense headquarters daily returns to satisfy the defense leadership that quotas are being enforced. So, Mr. Speaker, for example, in a sub-county in Bungoma County, if the number to be recruited were 8 or 10, Speaker, just like IBC, we have a command center at the defense headquarters. On real time, the moment those 7 are recruited, their ID, their names, their age, everything is submitted to make sure that in between, Mr. Speaker, there were many times people were making were using a lot of corruption, where 7 people will go to the recruitment center, they are told you have been taken, and in the evening they are chased away and replaced with other people. Speaker, I really want to assure you, this House, because we are oversighted by the representative of the people. Myself and General Ogola will make sure that the moment the 7 are recruited, our command center at the defense headquarters in real time will receive them so that nobody in this recruitment can change anything. And I want the House to take me to charge on that matter, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, finally, was the question of explaining the mechanism that government has put in place to enable Kenyans report malpractices witnessed during subsequent. Speaker, first, before I tell the country the mechanism, I want Kenyans not to bribe our officers. That's the beginning. Because the bribe taker, there must be the giver. So there are people I'm sure who are watching me. Some of them are conmen, some of them are fraudsters, some of them make cash during the recruitment. Parents, I want to talk to the parents of Kenya. Don't bribe anybody. Let your son and daughter present themselves at the recruiting center, and our officers are under obligation to make sure that each and every Kenyan is given an opportunity. Speaker, the Kenya Defense Forces recruitment drive has a lot of adverts, free to all eligible candidates. Members of the public are warned against engaging in malpractices, a view to influence the process, and they're encouraged to report any suspicious. So, Speaker, at all our recruitment centers, recruiting officers are required to make verbal announcement, reiterating the implication of non-compliance with a warning to desist. So, Speaker, this year we have asked AAC and the DCI and all other civil society organizations within the locality we are recruiting to make sure that they are on standby and our members, our officers are not vulnerable. We will give a call number where even parents can call and say there was a fraud going on. So, Mr. Speaker, I really want to ask this House that judge us, judge me, Judge General Ogola, and the entire leadership of Kenya Defense Forces on this recruitment. And I'm sure there will be a difference this time around.
Lano Siri, Badi Twalib. Bed Simba of Kisauni.
Yes. Asante sana,
Hold
Mheshimiwa.
Bed Simba, hold, you are a joyrider. The first bite must go to the member who asked the question to ask a supplemental. I'll come back to you immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really want to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the exposition of the fact that we want to change the face of the military recruitment, especially the KDF. That is a very good admission and also a very good way forward from the Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Speaker, as we speak today, I think I speak on behalf of many of the parents, and the reason why I raise this question is on the basis that from the villages where I come from, parents are selling land now, and there is a price already for the job. So what the Cabinet Secretary has said is good, but I want it to be put in practice, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, because it is very easy to speak, but the young people that are actually agitated and worried want a voice that comes to you, and that is the voice that Lotte today is giving before you. Two, when we talk about marginalization, and we say that because of the sub-counties and the counties and the